Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com here with an ESO 1-bar magic Sorc build, which I think is completely broken. In this build, we're going to use Oakensoul, which locks you into 1 bar but gives you a ton of buffs. And I'm going to give you options whether you're going to use this mythic or not. You're going to want to pick up this build if you want something simple, hard-hitting, fast, and tons of resources that an average player can pull off in ESO PvP, whether it's Battlegrounds, Open World, Serial, or Imperial City. Make sure you smash the thumbs up button if you like these 1-bar builds, and I'll keep cranking them out. And also consider watching me on twitch.tv/Deltiasgaming, where I play and interact with you, the community, live. Here's what I came up with a magic Sorc 1-bar build. We're going to go over the skills on the Sorc, and we only have 1 bar, but it's really important decision on what type of staff you use and why. So in this footage, and what I'd recommend for a high-level player with CP and that can resource sustain very well is a fire staff. And the reason why the fire staff is you can do a lot of damage single target. The passives really benefit single target, which this build and the magic Sorc excel at. The lightning staff is a lot easier to channel fully charge heavy attacks and do a little bit of AoE range. If you struggle with resource sustain and you want something a bit simpler, go with the lightning staff. But if you want the optimal damage and absolute single target nukes, fire. And that's the one that I picked for the footage. So the abilities that we're going to use the basics of the Sorc, and I'm going to use Streak. Streak is offensive and defensive. The way you use Streak is obviously to get away, but you can streak through targets to stun them, dropping their block. You can't avoid it. It drops your block, you can't dodge roll, and it gets nightblades out of stealth. So the trick that I have and the problem that I have with the magic Sorc is I play like a templar. I'm up close and personal. You want to streak to get away, and that's typically your #1 defensive, is to use that to go through someone, turn back around, and survive. So try to play at least 18 to 15 meters away from someone, and when in doubt, streak away. Now we're going to have 2 abilities that I use in tandem, and that's Crushing Shock, which is from Destruction Staff skill line. It's a range main spamble, and what it's used for is to proc Crystal Fragments. Crystal Fragments hits really hard, hits like a Mack truck, and you're going to wait till it lights up. So right there, my Crystal Fragments light up and allows me to fire off a huge frag for lower cost and much higher damage. You can use Crystal Frags as a main spamble if you want, just casting it over and over, and it can proc itself, freeing up a bar slot. I like the traditional Crushing Shock into a C-Frags spammable combo. And then we have a survivability skill, and that's Hardened Ward from the Sorc skill line. The reason I like Hardened Ward and scaling off of max magic is how shields work. So this build, like previous Sorc builds, is going to be able to scale off max magic and survive using a combination of Hardened Ward, a big huge shield, and then a big burst heal with our Summon Twilight Matriarch. The shield is a little bit hard to use, so it's 6 seconds, but you're not going to have to bar swap, and that's the real solid point about the 1-bar builds, is when your health's about to dip or has dipped, you can put a shield that adds like an extra layer of health, really, and then you can use your heal to catch back up and top back up. I love Hardened Ward on my Sorcerer and cannot recommend it enough because it keeps you alive, and what's nice about it is you can front bar it. You can click it, and then when you charge into the action, you already have one activated for 6 seconds. So kind of like Resolving Vigor on a stand build, when you're anticipating damage, use it before you charge in, and then use it when you get done. Rely more on Hardened Ward to be your defensive than just sitting there spamming Bird Heal. And the reason why that's really relative is because the magic Sorc has Blood Magic passive. So dark magic ability, when you hit an enemy with it, you're going to get health back. And it scales off your max health. It can happen every half a second, and you get a lot of health from just doing Crystal Frags with this. So a lot of times, as even though you're going on the offensive, you're going to be able to get a lot of health back using this Blood Magic passive doing C-Frags. And I already talked about it a little bit, but Summon Twilight Matriarch, it's absolutely incredible. The reason why is the healing scales off of your max magic. So if you have a high max magic pool in tandem with Summon Twilight Matriarch and Hardened Ward, you're very, very survivable. Max magic also increases your damage, not as much as maybe spell damage or other factors, but we have some gear sets to do that. So that's why it's relative to max out your max magic with gear sets and have enough resources to spam Twilight Matriarch, whether it heals you or can heal an ally as well. And when someone Twilight Matriarch gets killed, if someone kills your little critter, you're going to have a shield to defend yourself until you can get it recast, because it does take a cast time of 1.5 seconds. So when it's down, usually I'll go behind something and cast it with the shield up, and usually I can get through the 1.5 seconds. Now, moving on to the ultimate of choice. You have a bunch of options, and I like to play a little bit more AoE in my ultimates for big, huge AoE nukes. Shooting Star from the Mages Guild. What this does, it's going to do flame damage and stun targets. Now, you already have an on-demand stun, so how you use this is you cast your meteor, which takes a few seconds to land, giving you a great opportunity to streak through someone, turn back around, and frag. So if we jump in the game, this is how I typically use it. What I want to do is get in combat, right? And then I want to basically get a C-frags procced already. So I might cast a little crushing shockweed, get my shield up, right? Now I have a C-frags procced, okay? So then I'm going to hit this and streak through them. Remember, it's going to drop their block, and then you're going to turn back and round and frag them. The other thing you can do before you dive bomb into combat is get a shield up. So you're kind of doing this weave, shield up, you hit your meteor, streak through, turn back around, and frag. You don't have an execute, but your main spammable and crystal frags hit so hard you really don't need to fuss with it. There's a whole bunch of other options for Sorcs with alts. Energy Overload. This is going to give you back resources. It's pretty cheesy to run actually, but for 21 ultimate, you can pretty much one-shot someone. So you can activate that and still get access to all of your skills and shoot it out with a huge, massive light attack, just completely nuking someone into a C-frags. The problem with it, it's pretty much entirely single target, as you want to use just a light attack, but it can hit like an absolute hammer. Another one for group utility is Suppression Field. This is negate. You drop a negate down streak, and this is like in coordinated PvP groups or tower fights where you want to control the battlefield. One of the best ultimates in the game because you can't cast magic abilities while you're inside. Not really that relevant for BGs unless you're coordinated with a team, but really inside a Cyrodiil or Imperial City with choke points and coordinated groups, one of the best ultimates in the game. One of my favorite ultimates, and I think underrated, is Greater Storm Atronach from the Daedric Summoning skill line. You place this down and it just lasts forever, doing a ton of single target damage. It also does a stun, so this is like pretty cheesy to use in duels because you drop it on top of someone and they just do so much pressure while you're sitting there attacking. It's kind of like a bow ult where you can still attack, but it's just zapping someone single target. So pick whatever ultimate you like. I stick with Shooting Star from the Mages Guild primarily because I like the ability to have big, huge AoE plays, and I'll show you why a little bit later, especially with CP. And now let's move on and talk about the gear. So what I've created here is something well balanced in what the Magic Sorc needs, which is a lot of recovery and a lot of max stats. The 5-piece I'd highly recommend using is Necropotence. The set comes from the Overland and Rivenspire, and when you have a pet active, which you should always for the most part, this will give you the most max magic possible in a 5-piece, thus adding to your kill potential and your survivability. Plus its base game, it's extremely easy to get. Some alternatives in case you don't have that, one would be Crafted Alfix. Also gives you a huge max stat pool, but you're not required to have a pet out in case you don't want to use that or you want to go with something else. The other 5-piece I go on at all times is Amber Plasm, coming from Runes of Mazatoon. The 5-piece gives you recovery across the board, which is really needed on a Magic Sorc that predominantly dodge rolls and uses just Magica pool for casting abilities. I tested out Wretched Vitality as well, but it's really hard to maintain a lot of uptime when all you get is your minor buff from using frags and the major when using a potion. So Amber Plasm actually is a set and forget on at all times. Another strength of Amber Plasm and Necropotent is these work in no proc PvP as well. So besides the Mythic, you really don't have to change out much in this build if you want to use it in Raven's Watch Cyrodiil. Some alternatives for resource sustain is Bright Throat's Boast. This is really good if you have a drink activated. You can also go with a crafting alternative like Shacklebreaker, which gives you a bit more max stats with not the recovery. So Oakensoul the Mythic is going to give us a major and minor buff at all times, giving us an enormous amount of magic and stamina recovery while we're in combat. This is all the buffs that the Oakensoul activates. Courage, protection, heroism, and then minor endurance, major berserk, sorcery, force, brutality, and major prophecy. So essentially your crit buff, your spell damage buff, major force, so your crit damage that you normally would get in a Warhorn, major berserk that you normally get with Kinra's, Your spell damage buff you mainly get from spell power cure and heroism giving you back ultimate. Plus, you get protection and your armor buff and do not have to slot anything. And now we get to the juggernaut piece, Oakensoul. This is a mythic. Mythics are kind of annoying to get a hold of. Essentially, you have to unlock the skill line with ESO Plus or Greymore. Once you do that, you can start collecting mythics. They're account bound, the leads are. So you have to get up to 5 leads. This one specifically is kind of a nightmare to get. The number one painful one is Merkmeyer safe boxes. I have a separate video and the link in the description below for all of the leads if you're interested. But it's going to give you all of these major buffs: Berserk, Courage, Brutality, Sorcery, Prophecy, Savagery, Force Protection, and so on. Not to mention the minor buffs giving you resources back. That's why we can stack so much resources. This is 1000% worth getting. I was very skeptical with Oakensoul, but it makes you so much more survivable without the need to bar swap and constantly babysit buffs. It's actually quite fun playing. Now, if you don't have Oakensoul, what do you do and why? What I'd recommend doing is building a huge max magic and stamina pool and going recovery focus. So you can run the Crafty Elfix and Necrotic Potence back to back and Bewitch Sugar Skulls for the food, and then run Engine Guardian as a helm. Engine Guardian will pretty much carry your sustain, whether it's stamina allowing you to dodge, roll, and block for survivability, or magic allowing you to streak and burst heal with Twilights. And the big huge stat pools will keep you alive enough with big huge massive shields. You will know a little bit of difference though, because Oakensoul is just so powerful, but you should be decently survivable. You just won't have the damage until you get Oakensoul. Another alternative to Oakensoul as well until you get that is Death Dealer's Fate. This gives you max stats across the board, a little bit over 2,000 after a minute in combat. Not as powerful as Oakensoul, but it adds to your damage, kill potential, and survivability as well. So again, what I would do is start your character loadout doing a 5-piece centered on a max magic. Your second 5-piece I would work on resource sustain because you're going to need it. And then a 1-piece mythic or a 2-piece monster helm like Engine Guardian. For the traits on the arm, what I'd run is well fitted and infused. The reason why I don't run impenetrable is because you get so little bang for your buck. So on head, chest, and legs, you can run infused and have a big, huge max stat pool with prismatic glyphs. And then you can run well fitted and do a crap ton of dodge rolls for survivability, or sturdy if you block a lot. Weapon, I would run fire if you want the most damage with the sharpen trait in either a spell damage glyph or escapist poisons. Then on the jewelry, it really depends on what you want. If you want all spell damage, that's great. I like 1 infused Oakensoul ring magic recovery and the rest spell damage, with the other 2 being arcane. And then 5-1-1 like I already talked about for the armor types. Moving on to the racial choices and why I like the Dark Elf for my magic Sorc, which might be a little bit controversial, is the dynamic, increasing your max magic and max stamina. If you get 15 to 18,000 magicka, it allows you to do a lot of dodge rolls and not dip into your magic for pure survivability, and being very highly mobile with the well-fitted trait. So the extra magic and stamina is really nice. You get flame resistance, is great, especially if you're going to be a vampire. And then you get this here, weapon and spell damage by 258. So you're going to hit just as hard as any other build due to your max magic and weapon and spell damage, but you have the stamina and the flame resistance to go with it. A bunch of other good options are Khajiit for pure burst crit damage and High Elf. On the Mundus Stone choices, what I'd recommend is the Mage because it increases your max magic. You can also go with the Atronach if you want a little bit more magic recovery. And then for food, I tested a bunch of food out. So Bewitch Sugar Skulls is going to give you the most max stats, but it doesn't have any recovery besides health. So you really need to hit about 25 to 3,000 magic recovery when you're buffed. And the reason why is we don't have Dark Deal or Dark Conversion on our bar. So we're not able to sit there and spam it, trading resources for magic, specifically stamina. If you want to drop the bird and do that, that's great using Bewitch Sugar Skulls, but you're going to be a little bit more vulnerable to getting back resources when someone can just bash it or use Crushing Shock at a distance. So instead, I go with Clockwork Citrus Fillet. This is very expensive. It's going to give you max health, health recovery, max magic, and magic recovery at the greatest value. A cheaper alternative is Witch Mother's Potent Brew. It gives you a little bit less stats and a little bit max recovery, but it won't cost you an arm and a leg. So experiment and see where you lack. If you go with Bewitched Sugar Skulls, you can use the Atro, plus it's pretty dirt cheap. Now, potions, I always use tripods on this specific build, especially since stamina is at a premium. And then escapist poisons, if you can afford it, there's a bunch of different recipes, but it's absolutely incredible if you want to put that on your front bar or a weapon/spell damage glyph. And you don't need spell damage potions because you already get that with Oakensoul, but consider using them if you're not going to use Oakensoul for this 1-bar build. Let's go into champion points real quick, and the biggest change here is actually a cultal overload. It blows up enemies in a 4-meter radius. Now, I actually take this on a single target build because if I use meteor, I can streak in and actually wipe groups, even though I'm a single target focused build, and it actually works. Very broken right now, but if you want to be a bomber, even as a single target player, you're going to use this. 2 damage producing, 1 deadly aim and masters of arms, really ramping up my single target damage, and then arcane supremacy giving me huge max magic. If you're not going to run Oakensoul and you're going to rely on a little bit more defensives, consider taking focus mending for pure single target healing, and then coming down into Staving's Deaths and use Ironclad to reduce direct damage attacks. So if you're not using Oakensoul, go heavily into defensives. Into the red tree we go. Balanced vitality, more health, more armor, and then the critical one here is Bastion, increasing effectiveness of our shield. And then the highest damage reduction, and that's Pain's Refuge, especially since we don't have a cleanse. The green tree doesn't affect performance very much, but in case you're interested, Gifted Rider, War Mount, Steed's Blessing. These things have some ability to increase your movement, and then you can go Liquid Efficiency or Rationer. And then again, of course, how you would use this build is kind of when you're working on a target, you're working to get a C-Frags proc, right? So you might just kind of sit there and get them, and then now you got a C-Frags proc. So this is what the build is centered around. Streaking through and stunning them, turning back around and firing a frag, but not hardcasting it. What hardcasting means is you're not using a frag. Frag becomes a lot harder hitting, a lot cheaper if you wait for the hands to glow purple and your bar to light up, just like this. Now, some people can sit here and frag and they use that as their main spamble, but you're vulnerable to attack because someone can bash that and also CC you, and it's not instance based. But it will free up a slot on your bar. So now that we got the kind of the basics here, what we're doing is light attack weaving. Now we got a C-Frags proc, we got a meteor up. So what we're gonna do is meteor, light attack, streak through, and then frag them. If you time it properly, you're gonna get so much damage up that it's going to be very hard for them to survive. And then we're going to save a tripod and you pretty much use it for when we need oh crap or we're dodging a lot. I can't get a C-Frags to proc for my life. So right there we got it. And you can see dark magic passive healing us like an absolute hammer. Also we can hit this. The bird is hitting for 14,000 crit heals. 14,000 non-crit there. 22,000 crit heals. And you can heal allies with it. So with this skill and bar loadout, you have really good survivability, you have good mobility, and you even have group utility and the capacity to do AoE damage as well. Well, gang, that's a build video. The first 1-bar video voted on by my Twitch chat. I really liked that the Templar PvP was actually nuclear missile level damage, and I can get some PvE builds as well. Whether you have Oakensouls or not, I can give you some advice and suggestions on different alternatives. So please smash that like, hit that thumbs up, subscribe. Come watch me on twitch.tv/Deltiasgaming where I play these builds live and interact with you, the community. Thanks for watching.